Exactly 1 year ago, virtually no one would have pegged Elena Korneeva for major success. She was grinding away in obscurity, fighting for every single point at lower-tier ITF tournaments held in small Spanish towns that aren't even featured on standard tennis maps, quietly accumulating ranking points, enduring defeats, and gaining valuable match experience without an audience. Fast forward to the present moment, and she is confidently stepping out onto the lawns at the Edgbaston Priory Club. Fresh off a dominant performance where she completely dismantled the reigning champion as if she completely controlled the venue. Waiting for her just across the net is the tournament's #1 seed, the current world number 37, who happens to be the exact same athlete that handed her one of the most stinging and lopsided losses of her entire season just 5 months prior in Manila. This encounter is far from a first-time meeting between two unfamiliar competitors. Rather, it represents a deep-seated piece of unfinished business masquerading as a standard second-round match. The 2026 Lexus Birmingham Open is classified as a WTA 125 level event, which means it offers relatively modest prize money and features a fairly compact player draw. But those specific details are completely irrelevant given the current stakes. What truly matters here is the perfect timing of this encounter, serving as the opening tournament of the critical grass court swing, acting as the primary gateway toward Eastbourne, and providing the ultimate launchpad for Wimbledon itself. For Alex Eala, this represents a welcome homecoming to the exact court surface that yielded the absolute finest week of her entire professional journey so far. For Korneeva, however, this match carries a much more intense emotional charge, offering a golden opportunity to demonstrate that the devastating scoreline from their previous meeting in Manila was merely a distorted snapshot rather than an accurate representation of her true capabilities. Let us revisit the events of January 26, 2026, at the Philippine Women's Open in Manila, where Elena entered the draw as the highly anticipated second seed and the beloved local favorite. Korneeva unluckily drew her right away in the opening round, and what took place afterward could hardly be described as a competitive tennis match, functioning instead as a one-sided masterclass. Eala dominated the proceedings to secure a swift 6-1, 6-2 victory in just over an hour, sending the home crowd into a state of absolute euphoria. Following that crushing defeat, Korneeva packed up her equipment and boarded a flight back to her training base in Barcelona, carrying the memory of that lopsided scoreline as a heavy burden balanced somewhere between immense disappointment and fiery motivation. Yet this is precisely the point where professional sports refuse to follow a predictable path or stick to a pre-written script. Just a few weeks after that low point, Korneeva arrived at the Dow Tennis Classic located in Midland, Michigan, entering the tournament as the 5th seed, where she quietly and methodically began to tear through every opponent placed in front of her. She secured impressive victories over Nao Hibino, as well as Jody Burrage, and then encountered the second-seeded Daria Saville in a grueling semifinal match where she dropped the opening set, looking entirely exhausted and physically done, only to mount a fierce comeback and claim victory in 3 sets. Advancing to the final against China's talented Wang Xinyu, she showed immense composure to lock down a tense 10-point match tiebreak, ultimately lifting the very first WTA 125 trophy of her ascending career. A competitor who had been thoroughly dominated and dismissed a mere 4 weeks earlier was suddenly standing proudly on top of a champion's podium, cradling a winner's trophy. That is the beautifully unpredictable nature of this particular sport, which completely ignores conventional narrative arcs by presenting definitive evidence in one moment, only to utterly contradict it in the next. Meanwhile, Eala's journey through 2026 has unfolded as a significantly longer, more vocal, and far more intricate tale. Her competitive season launched in spectacular fashion over in Auckland, where she earned a stellar victory against Donna Vekic and marched all the way into the semifinals before Wang Xinyu finally halted her momentum in a highly competitive deciding set. Continuing her strong form at Indian Wells, she successfully navigated her way into the round of 16, a run highlighted by an impressive victory over Coco Gauff, who was forced to retire from the match while trailing. However, things took a sharp turn when Linda Noskova handed her a brutal 6-love, 6-2 defeat, and Miami brought a nearly identical disappointment when Karolina Muchova eliminated her by an equally harsh score of 6-love, 6-2. Her Grand Slam outings provided little relief, resulting in an immediate first-round exit at the Australian Open, followed by another opening match departure at Roland Garros courtesy of a loss to Iva Jovic. This recurring trend has become completely impossible to overlook, showing that while Eala can look absolutely phenomenal against specific playing styles in certain tiers of competition, everything shifts dramatically when she faces elite, heavy ball strikers who are operating at the absolute peak of their powers. In those high-intensity moments, her window of opportunity shrinks, her usual on-court brilliance completely evaporates, and the final scores quickly turn incredibly lopsided. The arrival of the grass court season, however, has a unique way of completely resetting the competitive landscape. Last June, Eala turned up in Birmingham as a player with almost zero historical footprint on this specialized surface. Yet she departed having successfully reached the prestigious Eastbourne final, where she pushed her opponent Maya Joint into a thrilling, high-stakes deciding tiebreak before ultimately falling short. Her overall win-loss record on grass across various WTA and Challenger tournaments stands at an impressive 9 victories against just 6 defeats, representing a 60% success rate that easily eclipses her 40% mark on clay and her 55% efficiency on hard courts. There is something unique about grass that perfectly complements her tactical style, actively rewarding the sharp geometry of her aggressive ball striking without forcing her into the kind of punishing, long-distance physical rallies that often expose her weaknesses. This vulnerability typically gets laid bare when heavy baseline power hitters begin to push her around on rapid hard courts, a contrast that was evident when she cruised past Priscilla Hahn with an emphatic 6-love 6-2 victory on Sunday, wrapping up the match in just over an hour. Throughout that contest, she consistently broke her opponent's serve while hitting balls that skidded off her racket with that signature low, penetrating trajectory that makes grass an absolute nightmare for heavy topspin players. That performance was far more than just a routine, comfortable victory. It served as a definitive declaration that this surface still speaks her exact language. Relying on short, efficient swings and impeccable early timing, she strikes the ball so it barely clears the net before biting sharply into the court just inside the baseline, showcasing Eala at her absolute most lethal. Not to be outdone, Korneeva delivered an equally thunderous statement of her own to the rest of the draw. Greeted by Greet Minin, who captured this tournament title 12 months ago, and returned this year with every intention of defending her crown, Korneeva completely dictated their opening round clash to advance with a stunning 6-3, 6-1 victory. You do not simply stumble into a lopsided scoreline like that against a reigning tournament champion by sheer luck. Achieving that kind of result demands flawlessly clean serving, highly confident and aggressive returning, and a total disruption of the tactical patterns that allowed her opponent to claim the title on these exact courts just a year prior. Korneeva executed all 3 of those requirements to perfection, setting up a fascinating tactical battle that will ultimately dictate the outcome of this upcoming match. Korneeva is currently 24 years old, plays right-handed, was born in Samara, Russia, and had her competitive identity carefully crafted through extensive training in Barcelona. Because of this background, her overall style of play was deeply forged on clay courts and refined through multiple seasons of grinding through demanding ITF events scattered across Southern Europe. Her trophy collection includes 4 distinct clay court titles alongside 4 hard court titles achieved at the ITF level, meaning her competitive resume on grass is practically non-existent, consisting of a solitary challenger match and just 1 lone victory over the course of the past year. Despite that lack of experience, she finds herself standing here after dismissing the defending champion with an ease that bordered on pure disdain, leaving many to wonder what exactly explains this sudden surge. A significant portion of the answer lies in the effectiveness of her serve, with Korneeva maintaining an average of 2.6 aces per match over the last 12 months, while Eala manages a mere 0.8 aces on grass, a surface where service dominance holds immense structural weight. This statistical disparity does not merely offer a slight edge. Its impact compounds over the course of an entire match. Korneeva's overall first serve percentage regularly hovers around 55%, a metric that isn't considered elite, but whenever she successfully hits her intended targets, her delivery generates completely free points that rescue her from having to engage in grueling rallies. Conversely, Eala's serve has never truly functioned as an outright weapon, remaining serviceable at its absolute best, which means on grass she is forced to hold her service games through the sheer quality of her ground strokes rather than relying on direct assistance from her initial delivery. To balance this, Eala boasts a phenomenal return game that more than makes up for any service deficiencies she might possess. Over the course of the last 6 months of competition, she has successfully won 32% of her first serve return opportunities, while capturing nearly 52% of points played against an opponent's second serve. In comparison, Korneeva tracks at 30% and 48% respectively across those same categories. In a sport where final outcomes are frequently decided by microscopic margins, Eala's clear statistical superiority as a returner represents a very real and incredibly potent advantage. She consistently tracks the flight of the ball much earlier than most, possesses the confidence to strike it cleanly on the rise, and intentionally anchors her court positioning well inside the baseline to rob the server of valuable reaction time. On grass courts, where overall rally lengths are notoriously brief, and the quality of the return directly dictates whether a point opens up for an attack or ends instantly, this particular skill transforms into a devastating asset. Their head-to-head rivalry currently sits deadlocked at 1 victory apiece, with their inaugural professional encounter taking place back in September of 2024. A match that saw Korneeva claim a straight sets victory by a score of 6-3, 6-3. The subsequent rematch in Manila went entirely Eala's way in an emphatic 6-1, 6-2 blowout, leaving their total sets won tied at 2 apiece, though Eala maintains a slight edge in overall games won by a tally of 18-15. The average duration of their matches sits at an efficient 1 hour and 32 minutes. And notably, neither of their prior contests has ever extended to a deciding third set. What this clean statistical history clearly reveals is that within this specific matchup, whichever competitor manages to seize emotional and tactical control early in the day tends to maintain it all the way to the finish line. There has been no historical precedent for a dramatic comeback, no mid-match reversals of momentum, and absolutely zero evidence to suggest that the trailing player can successfully claw her way back into contention once her opponent establishes a firm grip on the proceedings. Consequently, whoever manages to dictate the baseline terms in Birmingham will in all likelihood be the one to finish them. Looking at Korneva's side of the net, her ideal strategic blueprint is remarkably straightforward. She needs to elevate her first serve accuracy past the 60% threshold, a feat she comfortably achieved during her masterpiece against Minen, and she must remain relentlessly aggressive when attacking Eala's vulnerable second delivery. That specific second serve represents a well-known technical weakness that every single player in the locker room is fully aware of, as it lacks the necessary kick to push hitters back and fails to slice wide enough to drag opponents out of position. Against top-tier players like Machova and Noskova, that delivery essentially functioned as an open invitation for a punishing return. If Korneva can manage to apply that exact style of immediate, suffocating pressure from her return position, she can easily secure the service breaks required to tilt the momentum of this entire match heavily in her favor. For Eala, the ideal strategic playbook has already been written and successfully executed just 5 months ago against this very same opponent. Her main objectives should be to keep the ball exceptionally low, take Korneva's incoming regular shots directly on the rise, and actively prevent baseline exchanges from lengthening into 6, 7, or 8-shot brawls, where Korneva's deeply ingrained clay court muscle memory can begin to take over. On a grass court, points are ideally wrapped up by the 4th shot, and Eala's absolute best tennis consistently thrives within that abbreviated window. This allows her flat forehand to land deep and fast while her backhand smoothly redirects pace with sharp angles that die out on the grass rather than bouncing up into a hitter's strike zone as they would on clay. If she can successfully replicate even 70% of that exact tactical framework from Manila, her superior ranking should comfortably take care of the rest. Beyond the numbers, there is a fascinating psychological dynamic at play here, and this element rarely unfolds in a predictable manner. Eala enters the contest knowing full well that she completely dominated this opponent just 5 months ago, an awareness that can either fuel her inner confidence or quietly foster a dangerous sense of complacency. On the other side, Korneva is acutely aware of that past blowout, but she also remembers the championship response she put together immediately following that low point. This leaves Korneva in a much cleaner psychological position heading into the match, as she has absolutely no ranking points to protect and everything to gain on the big stage. She gets to walk out onto the court playing the role of the dangerous underdog against the top seed, having already knocked out the tournament's defending champion, meaning the crushing weight of public expectation rests squarely on Eala's shoulders. Odds makers have positioned Eala as the clear favorite at around 1.29, translating to roughly a 73% implied probability of winning, while Korneva is listed as a significant underdog near 3.5. Those algorithmic figures feel reasonably accurate, as Eala is undisputedly the superior competitor on this specialized surface by almost every single measurable metric available. Her movement across the grass is far more natural, and her fundamental understanding of how to build points when the ball stays low is significantly more evolved. But a 73% edge is a long way from an absolute certainty. That remaining 27% represents a genuine window of opportunity for an upset. And Korneva's stellar recent stretch of form, highlighted by her trophy run in Midland and her total dismissal of Minen, proves she isn't here merely to fill out a spot in the tournament bracket. For fans eager to catch this intriguing battle live, the WTA Unlocked platform will be streaming every single Birmingham match completely free of charge. This is the official membership network of the WTA, requiring a simple, no-cost sign-up to grant fans full access to live court coverage from both show courts at every single WTA 125 event throughout the entire calendar season. This specific match is officially locked in for June 3rd, and for viewers located inside the United States, the Tennis Channel will also be providing comprehensive coverage of the Birmingham tournament. For fans over in the United Kingdom, who prefer to witness the action unfolding live and in person, grounds passes for the Edgbaston Priory Club are available starting at a very reasonable £12. Ultimately, the thought I keep returning to isn't the gap in their world rankings or how they split their previous encounters, but rather the pivotal question of whether Korneva can successfully translate her raw, recent confidence into smooth grass court execution against a rival whose entire tennis identity was practically engineered for this surface. Her memorable title run in Midland was achieved on indoor hard courts, and her most outstanding career milestones were entirely forged on clay, making grass highly unfamiliar territory where a single victory over Minen, no matter how spectacular, offers a tantalizing possibility rather than definitive proof. Meanwhile, Eala arrives carrying her own distinct baggage, having managed just 4 victories against 6 defeats over her last 10 professional outings. Those recent losses include highly alarming bagel sets surrendered against Machova, Noskova, and Jovic, showing that when Eala experiences an off day, she doesn't just lose a tight match, she completely unravels. These extremely lopsided scorelines strongly imply that whenever her rhythm gets disrupted or her vulnerable serve faces heavy punishment, she lacks a dependable backup plan to steady the ship. The ultimate question on grass is whether Korneva possesses the necessary tactical tools to cause that level of disruption. Meenan ultimately failed to do so, and Han couldn't manage it either. But it's worth noting that neither of those players is a surging 24-year-old riding the massive emotional momentum of a recent title while playing with absolutely nothing to lose. My official prediction is that Eala will secure the victory in straight sets, likely by a scoreline resembling something close to 6-3, 6-4. Her overall grass court pedigree is well established. Her elite return game gives her a far sharper weapon in fast conditions, and the tactical variety she possesses, including her low skidding slice backhand, delicate drop shots, and sharp angles that exploit the dead bounce, offers her vastly superior options in short rallies compared to what Korneva can currently produce. However, if Korneva can consistently land her first serve above the 60% mark and resolutely refuses to get dragged into long baseline exchanges, she has the power to make this an incredibly uncomfortable afternoon for the top seed. She possesses the heavy hitting required to force tiebreaks, putting herself in a position to manufacture the kind of high-stakes match where just 2 or 3 critical points can completely reshape the entire outcome. Taking a broader view of the situation, this tournament in Birmingham is far from the final destination for Eala, with Eastbourne coming up immediately next on the calendar, followed closely by the grand stage of Wimbledon. Last season, she utilized this exact event as a springboard to propel herself all the way into the Eastbourne final, a spectacular run that completely revitalized her official ranking and allowed her to break into the world's top 100 on the strength of those performances. The high-stakes process of defending those massive ranking points begins right here on Tuesday afternoon against a dangerous opponent whom the history books suggested she had already completely figured out 5 months ago. A clean, commanding victory here will see her section of the draw open up beautifully, setting up a potential quarterfinal clash against Kayla Day, followed by a possible semifinal encounter against either Masarova or Linda Fruvertova. Conversely, an early defeat would mean opening her grass court campaign with a severe ranking hit that won't easily heal. For Korneva, her run in Birmingham has already served as an incredible statement of intent, having successfully knocked off the reigning champion to earn her spot across the net from the tournament's top seed. A monumental victory in this round would propel her into the world's top 120, instantly announcing her arrival as a multi-surface threat who can go toe-to-toe with elite competition anywhere. On the flip side, a loss here does absolutely nothing to damage the positive upward trajectory of her career. And that exact competitive asymmetry is precisely what gives dangerous underdogs the freedom to step up and swing without fear. History shows that freely swung shots on a grass court at the perfect moment have a beautiful way of painting the lines exactly when a player needs them most. Professional tennis at this elite level is ultimately decided by microscopic margins that are so incredibly thin, they barely exist outside the precise half-second of contact between the strings and the ball. It often comes down to a big first serve that barely catches the outer edge of the line, a desperate return that clips the net tape and tumbles over, or an aggressive forehand aimed directly at the corner that lands 2 inches inside the court rather than 2 inches out. Eala deserves her status as the betting favorite, because over the grueling distance of an entire match, her baseline margins are historically much tighter, allowing her to find those lines with greater frequency, read the incoming serve a crucial fraction of a second earlier, and position her feet a half step closer to the ball's optimal striking point. Yet on any given Tuesday in the month of June, playing on a fresh grass court that has only hosted 2 days of active match play and still holds the damp cold of the English spring, those dependable margins have a funny way of completely inverting without warning. The highly anticipated match is officially scheduled to get underway at 9:30 UTC on June 3rd at the historic Edgbaston Priory Club. Tennis enthusiasts can catch every single moment of the action, streaming completely free of charge on the WTA Unlocked platform. As you settle in to watch this fascinating contest, keep in mind that the very last time these two athletes shared a court, the battle concluded in a swift 70 minutes and made the competitive gap between them look absolutely massive. However, you should also watch this match with the full awareness that absolutely everything Korneva has accomplished since that difficult afternoon strongly suggests that lopsided gap was merely a temporary snapshot rather than a final verdict on her abilities. This Tuesday afternoon will finally reveal to the tennis world which of those two stories reflects the absolute truth.